Loudmouth learns the hard way. SEAL Commander exposed. The bar was alive with the usual Friday night chaos, the hum of conversation, clinking glasses, and the faint rhythm of classic rock from the jukebox. Smoke mingled with the smell of fried food and beer, and the crowd pressed shoulder to shoulder, each person escaping a long week in their own way. In the middle of it all stood Ryan Clark, a man whose presence demanded attention whether the room wanted it or not. Broad-shouldered, brash, and loud, he thrived on ego, on proving his dominance over anyone who crossed his path. He laughed the loudest, told the most exaggerated stories, and punctuated every sentence with a gesture meant to assert authority. Tonight, he was at his best, retelling a story of a fight on the streets downtown, claiming he had taken on 3 men simultaneously and walked away unscathed. "You gotta show people you're the boss," Ryan boomed to his friends, pounding a fist against the bar for emphasis. "Otherwise, they'll run over you." His companions roared with laughter, egging him on, enjoying the drama and his display of confidence. Across the room, near a corner table partially obscured by shadows, sat a man who remained completely calm amid the chaos. His posture was relaxed, his eyes scanning the room with precision. Every movement, every subtle shift in the crowd registered with him. He wore simple, unassuming clothes, a dark hoodie, jeans, and boots, but his presence was commanding in a quiet, almost invisible way. A glass of water sat before him, untouched, condensation forming slowly on its surface. He did not seek attention, he did not need it. Ryan's gaze eventually fell on him. The lack of reaction irritated him. Here was someone who did not flinch, did not laugh, did not acknowledge his story or his bravado. That simple indifference stung worse than any insult. Fueled by ego and the need to dominate, Ryan strode across the bar. He planted himself directly in front of the man's table, folding his arms, leaning slightly forward. "You look bored, man. Don't tell me you didn't hear my story." The man looked up slowly, eyes calm and measuring, taking him in without a hint of reaction. "I heard it, I just didn't see the point." Ryan's expression darkened. "Not impressed? Not impressed with me?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only the man could hear. "You think you could do better?" "I'm not here to do better," the man replied, voice steady and measured. Ryan scoffed, a harsh, grating sound that drew attention. "You military or something?" The man shrugged slightly. "Something like that," he said casually. That one answer, delivered without ego, only fueled Ryan's pride. He smirked, leaning closer, as if proximity alone would assert his dominance. "Well, around here, we prove who's alpha. You want to prove it?" "I don't need to prove anything," the man said simply, finishing his sip of water. Ryan's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to defiance, or worse, indifference. Frustration boiled over. He reached out and grabbed the front of the man's hoodie, intending to shove him or intimidate him. His friends cheered him on, laughing, thinking it was a joke. The reaction from the man was instantaneous. In a single fluid motion, he twisted his wrist under Ryan's grip, shifted his weight, and used leverage to flip Ryan forward. Before Ryan could regain balance, he was forced to the floor, wrist locked painfully, chest pressed lightly against the edge of the bar. He could have been crushed if the man wanted, but he was not. Control, not harm, was the goal. "Let go," the man said calmly. His voice was quiet, but the authority behind it was palpable. Ryan struggled, but the grip increased subtly, ensuring compliance without escalation. The bar went silent. Patrons froze mid-conversation, sensing the shift in energy. The loud, arrogant man who had dominated rooms with bluster now found himself completely powerless in the presence of someone who didn't need volume to command authority. Suddenly, the bar doors opened. 3 men entered, moving silently and deliberately, their presence unmistakable. They were dressed in civilian clothes, but their posture, movement, and gaze spoke of extensive training. Eyes scanned exits, hands hovered near hips, and every step was precise. The room's tension escalated. One of them, the tallest, approached the table and nodded once to the man in the hoodie. "Ready when you are," he said quietly. Hayes released Ryan, who stumbled backward, clutching his wrist and struggling to regain composure. He looked at the newcomers, then back at the man who had just humiliated him. Who are you?" he stammered. "Commander Daniel Hayes," Hayes replied simply. Whispers spread through the bar. Some patrons immediately recognized the name, others only noticed the sudden reverence in the room. Daniel Hayes, a SEAL commander whose missions were classified, whose reputation was legendary, and whose authority was unquestionable. He had led the most elite and feared teams in U.S. Special Operations, and his presence alone demanded respect. Ryan's jaw dropped, his face flushed with embarrassment, the earlier arrogance replaced by confusion and fear. "You're serious?" he asked suspiciously. Hayes nodded once, very serious. One of his teammates subtly adjusted his stance, signaling readiness. Hayes glanced at Ryan and spoke quietly but with authority. "You mistook aggression for strength. Real strength is control, the ability to walk away when you could escalate, the ability to lead without proving yourself through violence. That is real power." Ryan's friends froze, unsure how to react. Hayes's calm, unwavering presence made their bluster meaningless. "You grabbed someone you didn't know," Hayes continued, "thinking it would prove dominance. It didn't. It proved insecurity. Confidence without skill is nothing but a mask." Ryan's face burned. Humiliation coursed through him. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "That's usually the case," Hayes replied, eyes steady. "Most people overestimate themselves until they encounter someone who actually knows what they're doing." Hayes signaled subtly to his team. They moved as a coordinated unit, flanking him without drawing attention, creating a visible yet silent barrier. Their presence alone communicated authority. Ryan's friends looked on in awe as the energy in the bar shifted. Patrons who had laughed moments ago now watched in stunned silence, recognizing a power they had never experienced. Hayes adjusted his hoodie slightly, looked at Ryan one last time and said, "Consider this a lesson. Leadership is earned through discipline, awareness, and self-control, not through volume or aggression. Remember that." With that, Hayes and his team exited the bar, moving with precision and quiet authority. The music and chatter slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. Conversations were subdued, laughter cautious, and a new understanding of real power lingered in the air. Ryan sank into a chair, staring at the floor, replaying every second in his mind. He realized for the first time that dominance wasn't about strength or intimidation. It was about discipline, awareness, and quiet authority. He had seen it firsthand, and the lesson was impossible to ignore. Weeks later, Ryan returned to the bar on quieter nights. Arguments erupted around him, but he no longer sought to dominate. He intervened with calm words instead of fists. "It's not worth it," he would say firmly. Patrons noticed his change, some quietly commenting on his newfound maturity. Meanwhile, Hayes and his team continued their operations far from public view. Missions that saved lives, disrupted threats, and upheld security were carried out in silence. Hayes's leadership was defined not by recognition, but by effectiveness, discipline, and the respect of those who served under him. He understood that true authority is invisible to those who lack the experience to recognize it. The bar incident became a private turning point for Ryan. From loudmouth arrogance to instant humility, he had learned a profound lesson about strength, discipline, and authority. Ego was destroyed, authority revealed, humility learned, and in the heart of one man, a quiet respect for real strength had taken root that would last a lifetime. The energy in the bar shifted permanently. The regulars spoke of the night Hayes revealed himself, though few fully understood the significance. For those who had been there, it became a story of caution, a reminder that arrogance could be humbled in a single instant by someone trained, disciplined, and silent in their authority. Ryan Clark, once the loudest and most arrogant man in the room, had transformed. Confidence remained, but it was tempered by awareness and humility. He no longer needed to dominate conversations or prove his strength. The lesson Hayes delivered without violence had etched itself permanently in his mind. In the end, the night at the harbor line was more than a bar fight. It was a study of power, discipline, and human ego. True authority doesn't broadcast itself. It exists quietly until revealed at the exact right moment. And when revealed, there is no doubt about who commands respect. America's deadliest seal had walked through a public space unnoticed, controlled a volatile situation with minimal force, and departed without fanfare. In doing so, he had taught a man with an inflated ego the difference between noise and authority, aggression and discipline, and pride and true strength. Ryan Clark never forgot it. Every time he walked into a bar after that night, he carried himself differently, not with bravado, but with the quiet knowledge that true power often does not announce itself. It simply exists, and it commands respect in silence. Ego destroyed, authority revealed, humility learned, and in the heart of one man, a quiet respect for real strength had taken root that would last a lifetime.